let's introduce ourselves. Yeah,
Cool.
let's start off. So like tonight's topic is about adoption. You asked for it, and sorry for those of you who are here for the first time. You didn't ask for it, but the last group did. I will introduce myself after Lauren because ladies first.
Oh, thank you. Lauren, I'm a Microsoft Modern Work Business Development Manager. So I cover all Microsoft 365 and Copilot for a Microsoft distributor, Data. Yeah, and I'm going to be talking a bit about my experience and our experience adopting Copilot and what I've seen of our partners as well.
Cool. Right. And yeah, I'm Daryl Webster, working for a Microsoft partner who they work in the modern workspace, and Copilot is one of the big things that they're focused on at the moment, of course. My role is change management and adoption. And if that's a new term to some of you, it's you've got the technical people that roll out the technology, they turn things on, they do it by design. I like to jokingly say that I make sure that people use that technology and make it look good. Yeah. Otherwise, no one's going to use it, right? It's going to turn it on. Ooh, deathly silent. All right. But we're actually going to start off with something of a bit of story, because I was interested when I was talking to Lauren about, and I often get into these conversations. How did Copilot roll out in your environment? What was it like for you? Because while we work in a space where we're helping others, we're also Copilot users too. And if any of you can cast your minds back to a Caltex ad that used to be on TV, where our drivers too, well, we're users too. Yeah.
It's mobile.
Mobile? Oh,
The drivers too.
sheesh. I'll have to ask later and check it out. But yes, you're right. So our agenda, we'll start off with an adoption story. We're going to talk about some challenges around adopting Copilot, a typical adoption program, and then, get into some of those adoption resources that are available. And if adoption sounds like a buzzword to you, it is about helping people to, start to make that change and build it into the way that they work. Yeah. So I wasn't allowed to use a photo of the Data office, so I found something off Unsplash. And we've got to come over here. We're going to do this like we're in the office. Right. Yeah. So, Lauren, you're at Data, and you rolled out Copilot. How long ago was that?
It would have been beginning of, technically it would have been January. Yeah, I got it in February, but January is when started rolling it out.
So someone else got it before you? Who got it before you?
So, started our senior leadership team. So we're a bit of a interesting, I guess, example, because although we're like a distributor and we do have a Microsoft team, we cover heaps of different brands and vendors, right? So we're an ANZ company. We have our IT in Australia, and then we have all of our teams. So it's not just the Microsoft team who get to decide how everything goes. So it started off with being our senior leadership team, rolled out to general managers, and then to Microsoft team, and then through the layers. Yeah.
And that sounds like a familiar story, which we are going to dig into later in the presentation. So you got it after a round of other people, and what was it like actually getting Copilot on your desktop? Were you given any introductions? Were you given any kind of coaching?
Not really. So we our kind of approach was to get it out as quick as we can, so we could start using it and start helping our partners with using it. So we're in a bit of a we were in a different position to like the partners I work with now, where we can plan adoption programs with them, as we would just like get this out as soon as we can. Everyone was wanting it. So yeah, we started with seeing this. They did the security, like testing, all of that, then brought it out to us, and then it was just go, here's your license, don't use it wrong. And that was kind of it, which was interesting. And then so from like being, I guess, the user in this particular scenario, it was having that was kind of interesting. So it was definitely a lot of learnings we got from that. I think, if I can just keep going, that would basically be, I think it's really important to, like looking kind of back on how we could have done that better, is Firstly, if you're going to tell people what they can and can't use Copilot for, AI for, having a policy around that's really important. So, we talk a lot about having generative AI policies, use policies for your business, which outlines what tools people can use, what they can use it for work, what if you don't want them to ask certain things, what they can and can't do. And I also think creating a environment where people feel safe and comfortable to also report if they've ask Copilot something and information's come up that maybe they're not meant to see, an environment where they know there's going to be no retaliation, nothing like that, they can report that, because that's going to help with the security, right? Because a big part of adoption, well, before you can even get to that point, is the security and making sure that your security and your data permissions are all correct. So then when it is rolled out, people don't see information that they already have but aren't meant to see. So creating an environment where, like we were kind of told, don't ask it anything that could get anything that you're not meant to see. But what does that mean, So guidance around that. I also think another challenge is we kind of I see this a lot with the partners we work with as well, is they give it to senior leadership team and they don't have time to try it, right? So adoption almost like halts there, because they're like, oh, the senior leadership team is still using it, haven't quite worked out the value they're getting from it yet, so we're not buying any more licenses or we're not rolling this out further. When there's people in the business who are using, they're using ChatGPT or they're using Copilot in their browser and they're being really successful and they're really loving using it, or they have heaps of ideas, it's not getting to those people. And I'm seeing that kind of halt adoption a lot with like the partners they work with. So I think creating internal champions and really encouraging that, because by a lot of the learnings that we've had from our team, because we didn't have this formal adoption process, it was our team sharing ideas, telling each other every day what we do for, I tried this, this worked really well. And that kind of is really what helped us build our kind of knowledge around it and our learnings. So where am I going with this? Encourage internal champions and give it to people. Think about people in the company who are going to get a lot of benefit. That won't just be senior leadership team, right? And they don't have time. So that's kind of where we're kind of doing it now reverse. So we're going back and we're revisiting it. So now, I'm sitting with the GMs and it's got, one person using Copilot for every single email that they write, one person not using it at all, one person not even knowing where to find it. So everyone's in this different boat, and we're now looking at how can we almost redo that a little bit.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
And like from that, I'd say I also think it's important to what I found personally helpful was, rather than thinking of Copilot as how can Copilot on day one change my entire way of working and transform my entire way of working, like starting with kind of small things and building from that. So like changes, or because you've got to almost change your mindset, like it's a skill. Like learning prompting, for example, is a skill. Like we haven't previously used Gen AI in our day-to-day, we haven't for a long time used it day-to-day. So what I think, how can AI help me with this task? And it's like a mindset change. So what worked for me is like starting with quick wins, like, okay, cool, email summaries, easy, click a button, team summaries, easy, and then finding things, building upon that. And that's what worked with our team as well. And then, as you get more used to it, you can do more use cases and
Brilliant. Exactly. She's answered the exactly the right way, because it's going to lead into everything we'll talk about. But I think true to form, right? So this is not about making an example of Decadata or anyone who was early to use Copilot, because we're all figuring it out, right? And I think we're all circling back and trying to do a better job of it. So it is a common thing that we see, and it's about learning from that. One thing I'll ask you just before we continue, the things that you have learned, is there some way that you're passing this on to other people? Do you have something like a community that you're using internally?
Yeah, we have we have a group chat where we just like share all our different ideas. We also have done like calls around the whole Microsoft business, where I'll like go through kind of scenarios and things like that. For some of my partners, like I'll write out like I have like a lot of notes and stuff like that, like my favorite prompts to get started with, like resources, things like that. So we've got a bunch of different things on the go really to support that. Yeah,
awesome.
And then some resources we'll show later on as well.
All right. So that is a story. And I think, like, I know that it's just Lauren and I talking, but it would be good, I think, to have that kind of vibe here in our user group, to make that time and to share those examples, because I mean, if any of you saw the video or were there and watched Stephen's talk from Fonterra, there was gold in there. Just being honest about that journey and learning from it. Now, does this look familiar to anyone? Anyone in the room, apart from yeah, of course. Microsoft put out yearly a report called the Work Trend Index, and it looks at different things that are happening within working in your workplaces, technology and changes, and of course there's a big focus on AI and how that's affecting things. And this is one of the findings, that 75% of people are already using AI at work, and 46% of them started using it less than 6 months ago. I don't know the sample size, but I'm a cynic. And I know, and this is no disrespect, but someone asked the question, someone answered it in a certain way, we talked to certain people, and I just wonder, how is this really landing? Because there's really something different about adopting Copilot, and this is why I'll just talk about some of these challenges. There's a couple of people I know here in the room that are working in the train and adoption space. And I think one thing about showing people how to use Teams or showing people how to use the technology, it's tangible. It's there. You can click a button. You can guide people through a scenario because it's kind of already there. It's paint by numbers in one sense, and you build on that knowledge. What is different about Copilot? Well, we might have seen the videos that I'm sort of playing through here now, the possibilities of what Copilot can do. And that's important, to be able to paint the picture of a possible future. But what we're seeing at the moment too is that technology is developing so fast, and that the vision that's been painted is also kind of out and ahead, that there's a mismatch between what we see and what we can actually experience. And that's not a bad thing. It just means that we've got to set that expectation clearly. When you're going to use Copilot for the first time, is it going to do everything in one click? Is it going to change your life and revolutionize things, and you're going to come out of work 4 hours early because you did everything in 3? No. But there's a journey to that, and that's kind of what it's trying to paint a picture of. I like how Lauren talked about this, that they rushed at it because it was all about trying to learn as much as you could in kind of a chaotic kind of way, because we needed to support our customers who were going to be close behind. And so that's how we all explored it. And what we quickly learned was, there's some things that don't quite match the videos. So let's focus on what works well. And you mentioned, the quick wins. Can I summarize an email? Well, that doesn't seem like a valuable thing, but it does when that email thread gets really long. Can I go into a Teams meeting and actually make sense of the transcript by asking questions of it? Yeah, I can do that. And I don't need to be some fancy prompt engineer. That's a distancing term there too. I think, we call them prompt engineers, and all of a sudden we're kind of making it sound like it's a highly technical job, when it's something that we just need to learn. So focus on what is possible right now and align it with the capabilities around what are our challenges and our pain points. Start with the simple is one way of answering that challenge. Copilot, learning Copilot is also highly personal. It's kind of in the name when we talk about it being a personal assistant, and that I think is a challenge. That one person's experience of Copilot and the way that they write things and find things out might be quite different to your experience. And as we're doing that, because it's highly personal, it's kind of more so than other Microsoft 365 apps. Like I said, we can show someone how to use the meeting buttons in Teams, and they will do what they do every time. But if you get Copilot to do something for you and it gives a different answer each time, roughly the same, but maybe a little bit different, and it's depending on what you put in, it's a highly personal experience. And that's actually one of the points of it, really. So while it's a challenge, it's also one of its strengths, that as we get familiar with using it, it is about being our personal assistant. Another challenge, we talk about being able to click buttons, and that we understand that I click this button and it does this in a tool, in an app. and we quickly learn because it's tangible. We also, in some way, we're tapping into that innate ability to, maybe some of us don't have this ability, we get lost in the city very easily. But, landmarks, we see things and we click on something because we understand it, and we get into that, rhythm or routine of, this is how I record the meeting for the meetup. I go in, I find the 3 dots, I make sure that I'm in the right meeting. No, don't listen to Nick because he stuffed it up last week. But it's that kind of route learning, which there are visuals and things that make sense. What's different about Copilot? Well, some of these experiences are click button, cool. Some of them are suggested prompts, great. But predominantly, it is a blank box. And that's really just the first wave, I would say, of Copilot 2. It's been the easiest way to get that technology out there, is to have this box, which is available right beside the app that you're using, and you can ask it things and use it as that source. But it has been compared to a little bit like, maybe not 3.1, because that was still a GUI, right? I think Windows 3.1 had a
DOS.
Yes. DOS. Yes, I should have used DOS. Right. So back to, and what did I recently watch with Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Who was the actor in that?
Broderick.
Matthew Broderick, and he was in a War Games. Yes, War Games. There was an AI there, and so computers were all command point driven at that point, and if you didn't know the commands, then you didn't know how to get it to do what it needed to do. In some ways, it feels like we're going back to that with Copilot. A little. So some people are more able to pick that up easier than others. And it's like a blank page too. Sometimes we can walk into a workshop, we've got this whiteboard and it's okay, we're going to come up with a solution for your problem. Give me some ideas. And you're like, Daryl, can you get me started? And I'm like, what do you want? And it's this sort of round around, like it's this blank page. So that's why Copilot does come with initial prompts and little suggestions of, here's some things that I know that I can do really well for you. When I click on that, let's make a start. I found this one really interesting too. If you think about this, the language of delegation. Forget Copilot for a moment. We have people that we work for or we work with in our organization who have the gift of being able to say, I know exactly what I want and I need my team members to do this. I would like you to do this. This is what I'm looking for. I would like you to find the information over here. Here's a couple of examples and come back to me with your first attempt and we'll talk about it. Does that sound familiar? Maybe you've been on the receiving end of that. And there are people that are really gifted at that. They have a way of doing this, and they're actually well practiced because they've been doing it for years at work. The language of delegation. And this is exactly what we need to do with Copilot. It doesn't feel natural to some of us. Some of us are like, oh, fine, I'll just do it myself. You know what I mean? So it's one of the barriers, but it's something that we can all learn as thinking of it like an assistant. And I think some of the most successful ways that I've used Copilot and learned to talk to it and delegate to it are when I am truly stuck with trying to find something, and I like, okay, I could drop in some keywords in a search box somewhere in Microsoft 365 and hope that I find this and narrow it down with search filters. But maybe I'll talk to Copilot and imagine it's like Nick, my assistant. Hey, Nick, I know we're in a conversation this week. And, so you talk your way through it and I get most often than not an instant hit. So the language of delegation is something that could be a barrier. And it's something that we can all learn to pick up. We did this a couple of months ago. We went through what it means to create prompts. And I think this actually hits on a real key thing, which is almost in conflict with the messaging. You can speed up the way that you work. You can do so much more. And so we're all in this kind of, yep, I can do this. We can speed it up. We can do stuff. But really what we need to do is slow down and think about what we want first and craft that prompt or think about how we're going to ask about it. So this was an example. Remember that a couple of months ago, we broke it down and said, a good way of writing a prompt is you have a goal, you give it some context, you tell it where to find some things, you might, give it your expectations or some examples. We have to slow down and think about that. Before we had tonight's meetup, Craig had a really good question about this, and he said, maybe from a sustainability point of view, we should be making more of an effort to try and slow down, get our prompt right to begin with, and get closer to the answer rather than throwing a few words at it and then having a conversation. I mean, I can imagine having a conversation with someone who might be my assistant, and I just go, hey, go and do this. What do you want me to do? I'll just make a start. You imagine the frustration? Imagine the processing, the steam that's coming out of the head, like, oh, I don't know what you're asking me to do. They're sort of a bit afraid of asking me for help or a bit more instruction. You see what I mean? Like, so if we slow down, then maybe we get closer to what we want and we don't have to throw in as many prompts. Levels of trust. Trust in the output. Now, this is a blank space, but I'm going to build it out. Always check the output before you use it, before you pass it on, before you craft that email and it starts to sound like it's the same tone every time. Again, going back a bit, American Idol, there was Randy Jackson who used to say, hey, dog, you made it your own. You made it your own, that song. Well, make that output from Copilot your own too. Don't just copy, paste, we're done. Have a look over it. See how good is it, and do you trust it? Well, there's something that's kind of important about that. From our standpoint, when I'm coming into a conversation with Copilot and I need to find something out and then use that output, where am I at? Am I someone who has no knowledge at all of this topic? Am I someone who has some knowledge of this topic? Yeah, I kind of know about it, so I know what I'm looking for, and maybe I can prompt a bit more accurately, or I know what's coming back and it makes sense. Maybe I'm an expert and I'm just trying to remind myself of all the other stuff that's out there and just gathering it. What's my starting point when I'm using Copilot? Now, why is that important? Prior knowledge of the topic. Right, we've still got the level of knowledge, no knowledge, some knowledge, and expert. And time spent checking the source, little or a lot. So come across from this side here. If you've got no knowledge of the topic, again, forget Copilot and you went to a search engine, you threw in a few words, you read a number of articles. The more that you learned, the more that you knew what to ask. You threw in a few more searches, you gathered a few more things, you did research, right? And you started to build up your knowledge of the topic. And then you started to understand that some things are pretty rubbish in terms of a source, and some have got a bit more relatable, reliable, accurate information with sources of their own. So if you've got no knowledge and you throw this thing in there, you probably should be spending a lot of time checking it just to make sure, even just to learn for yourself. But what this sort of vision that's thrown out there is, and maybe because we're in a rush and we just want to get things done quickly, that sometimes when we've got no knowledge, we're going right out there with, oh, it looks about right. Copy, paste, done. Copy, paste the transcript or the AI-driven notes from our meeting, and we send it off to our customer. And then maybe we've just committed to something that we didn't actually say. So no knowledge, some knowledge. Yeah, but why does the expert flatline? Well, I think the expert, when they get information back from Copilot, they can clearly see, oh, that's way off, or no, your sources are wrong. But that's good, and that's good, and that's good. But I think they will always check, and they should always check. We're nowhere near close to be able to, was it the Rabbit R1, those devices that are AI, and the Humane AI pin? Man, they thought that we could go, hey, pin, go book me an Uber and place at a restaurant, and also call my friend, go, like it's Star Trek. And we didn't have to check or anything. We had complete faith in its output. Now, I think we'll be for a while, we'll have to check. Right, so that trust in content. I've talked through a number of challenges. I've talked through various things that we can do and the way we can address it. Now I'm going to switch gears into what does a typical adoption program look like to address some of these challenges. And to be honest, when we do try and help our IT departments, our people to make any kind of change in our organization, we go through some of these very similar rhythms. We have to envision what is it that we're looking for? What are our goals? What does the future look like? We think about who is involved and we define the people and what they need. We also think about the scenarios that they're going to face. But when it comes into Copilot and thinking about software in particular, we select an early group of adopters. And you heard example from Lauren, but we see it commonly too, that maybe giving Copilot to just the IT people isn't necessarily the best way to test and see how this is going to land. Maybe giving it to the person who's going to pay the bills and authorize things, who's senior, might not be necessarily the only approach. So when we select our people that are going to be trying out and being early adopters, think of them as the group that we want to get a nice spread of experiences, the good and the bad, so we can learn from it. Don't be afraid of that. Another common thing that you'll see in an adoption program is this fancy term called Center of Excellence. What does that mean? Community. A group of people who are all going through the same experiences and who are going to share their questions, their answers, their tips, their findings. They're going to do that together and try and get that kind of culture of learning going. It's commonly done in the Microsoft space using a Microsoft team or Viva Engage or some other place where you can have a conversation and share your examples. And we're going to see some examples a bit further along. I should really speed up. We've got knowledge portals, places to actually store what we've found so that it's easily found in search. And I guess we could run a Copilot over that too. Yeah, ask the Copilot about Copilot. We should be promoting the benefits, because if we're making changes in our organization, then we've got to hear about the success stories. What worked well for you? What didn't work well for you? I guess that's not promoting benefits, but you know what I mean. Promoting the activity and learning from that. Training sessions, giving people, a good starting point. One of the common programs that can be run is like, we're going to take you through each of the different Copilots. We're going to spend an hour on each and try and show you how and what to do with each of those. You'll get mixed results with that. I think the key thing here is, again, it's a bit like painting the vision. Here's what's possible in each of these different experiences of Copilot. While you're watching, ask your questions, see if there's something that relates to you, and make that your starting point. If you don't remember everything, don't worry. There's no exam. There's no test at the end. Just pick on one or two things, and if you come away and use that, great. Most importantly, measuring. More so for the people running the adoption program. But we want to know, how did we start out? What was people's knowledge? How are they going now? And how are they going in 6 to 12 months' time? Are we making an impact? And if we aren't, or if we are, but we need a bit of adjustments, what do we need to do to adjust? So it's important to measure how things are progressing. Not to say, gamify it and say, my group is using Copilot more than yours. Yeah, but more so that we're learning from that experience, and we're actually making decisions from data. All right, I will try and race through these quickly. Here's some examples of experiences and things I've just talked about. So how do we set the vision? Maybe we have a workshop. Microsoft partners run this on behalf of Microsoft. They can take you through, a couple of days or, a few meetings to go through and have a quick look at what's possible. So that's cool. Part of that is understanding a bit more about your organization, recognizing that it's not just about running through the same script and saying, here's what Copilot can do. It needs to be a discussion. Oh, great. That's great, Daryl. So here's our example. Here's our need. And that discussion happens. And you start to identify scenarios that are important to you and your organization. People, like personas, people and roles in the way that people work. Come out with an action plan, and then you put your pilot together. Here's an example of that Copilot Center of Excellence, and it is one that's there's a couple of experiences like this. This one is out of the box. If you're an organization that is using Viva Engage as a kind of social conversational way of learning, then these are really simple communities. It's a way of sharing best practices, sharing those prompts, and creating discussion around it. I think whatever platform you choose, if you've got something that people are having a chat about their learning, great. Although I don't encourage an all org distribution group on Copilot because the reply alls will kill you. But same thing. I know this again is engage, but it could be any communication method. Could be even an intranet site. Dedicate a site, a place for people to go and find out about what's happening with this Copilot program. Where can I go to learn? You know, what are some of the learning experiences that I could sign up for? And oh, there's some stories that are shared there too. So it could be, you know, a communication site. It could be whatever your intranet is. Just make sure that you've got a place for people to go to learn. Right, measuring. So there are some tools available, and Stephen talked about some of these last month as well. This is the Copilot dashboard, and there's an element of this that is available freely out of the box, and then if you want the deeper stuff, it is tied into a Aviva Insights subscription. But it is quite useful as a starting point. You know, you get a number of licenses, you assign them to people. You do want to know, well, are people using them? Now, with any of these kinds of stats, they're not identifiable. I can't say that Kirsty is, you know, the top user of Copilot, so we'll give her a trophy, but Ben is barely using it, so let's hassle him. But rather it's looking at it across maybe a group, for example, and helping us to identify who is the group of people that need a bit more help. What can we do to help them learn a bit more? So drilling a bit more into the differences between that. The seeded measurements is what you would get out of the box. You don't have to pay for anything over and above Copilot itself. And that's your first column. You know, you'll get some guidance around readiness. You'll get some views of the impact, maybe some general information around time that you might be saving. And at that tenant level too, you can ask some questions in a survey, put them into the dashboard, and it can come out with some of those answers based on sentiment. But if you are using Microsoft Viva, then you are able to go through, drill in with a lot more filters, even start to build some of your own reports based on the information that's there. And some examples of that: advanced Copilot dashboard. It's using direct reports and who's your manager, and you know, basically that's a way of identifying a group of people who are using Copilot. So an example here is your company, and then maybe there's, you know, 5 or 6 different people leaders that you could drill down into and take a look at that report. Now, Cecil's group, they're really doing a great job using or adopting Copilot, it would seem. Yeah, like 80% of people are using Copilot every day. Nice. Callie's group might need a bit of attention. So let's talk to learning and development. Let's go and talk to some of our Copilot trainers or our business partners who are going to sit down and give them a bit of guidance and just help them along. Maybe they just haven't found relatable ways of using it yet. And you get this breakdown here too, based on app as well. Now, take it with a grain of salt, because a lot of these measurement tools are quite early. They'll be developed over time. They'll have a bit more insights. And if you do get the advanced way of drilling down and making your own reports, maybe you can get into a bit more of these details. But you know, what is defined as a active user? Is it someone who uses Copilot in Teams once a day? Is it someone who, you know, in Outlook will use the summary feature? Maybe. So yes, just think about that. You know, is that adoption to you, or is that usage? See, to me, adoption is someone who is actively going back and using this product because they are saving themselves time, or they are finding it useful to drill down into the details of a meeting. here's that example of that sentiment. So there were questions that were put out in that survey, and you can measure it based on the different groups, departments, and those different categories. I've talked a lot. I think we've got a few slides that you might be quite familiar with too. Yeah, so we'll get Lauren back.
Oh, so I just wanted to run through some of the adoption resources that Microsoft have that are really helpful, and just some other kind of like learning paths and things like that that I often recommend and found to be really good. So firstly, the Microsoft 365 or Copilot Success Kit. So this is some really good resources. So the technical readiness guide when you're doing the like security preparation for your tenants is really good. The scenario library, and also the top 10 to try in Copilot. I recommend that a lot to people who are very new to using Copilot and want some like first things to try. We've kind of made our own versions of those as well. So you could look at doing something similar with prompts that you find work really well for your team. But everyone's different, and everyone's going to get value from different prompts and different use cases. There's also the scenario library. So some of the scenarios that are there. Again, so when you're rolling this out to different roles, not everyone knows different, what everyone does in their day-to-day work life. So this is really helpful. I think as well, it's really easy for people to then resonate to something. It might not be exactly workflows that they do, but it's can be really familiar. So that can be really helpful as well. There's a launch day kit. So this is the implementation guide, and also some templates you can use for like email communications, for internal posts and like team social media posts, flyers, all of that. So you can use these templates. You could also customize them as well. So I've done that when you want to kind of word it a bit differently for a particular team or customer that you're deploying it for. But again, it's a really good way to get started, particularly when you're wanting, you are doing a more formal or more official like adoption approach. Leveraging these resources will be really good. Prompt resources. So there's 2 prompt resources I'm going to show you. I'm going to actually share my screen and then go through that now.
While you're doing that, Laura, maybe if your tag on.
I'm just going to hold that. Oh, is that better?
Yeah, that'll work.
Sorry, I forgot I had that on. Okay. Oh, that's actually so much better. Cool. I'm going to just share my screen now. So there's Prompt Buddy is one that I've used and recommend. This is sharing. Also Copilot Lab, they do different things in a sense. So Prompt Buddy is cool because you can create like org-wide like prompt library for all used in a team or all used in a company. It's a Power App that's really easy to install. When you get the slides, there was a link on that slide to the like instructions for installing it. But you basically can deploy this into a team, or you can deploy it into multiple teams, and people can add their own prompts that they like to it.
Lauren, just to point out that that's a Copilot Center of Excellence, COE. So that's a really good place to put it to start off with.
And so there's a bunch of like different prompts that kind of come with it. So you can choose to keep those, and then people can add their own as well. So you can have like an organization-wide one, or you could have one for just individual teams as well. So because some prompts will work better for some teams depending on what they do. But it's a really good way to make like an org-wide or team-wide library for that. You've also got Copilot. Where is this? Somewhere in my tabs. Yeah, here we go. Copilot Lab as well. This is a good place to get started too. This is more of so you get a bunch of example prompts. You can filter this by role. You can filter it by app. Soon you'll be able to save your own prompts to this as well, but it's more of a personal library. So when you save something, it would just be for you. So that's why I'm mentioning both, because they are both good tools to do slightly different things. At the moment, you can save like prompts that are already here, but then soon in the Copilot window itself, you'll be able to save your favorite prompts, and then it will save into here, and then you can share that with your colleagues, but it's not like an wide library or anything. So in that slide as well, I put a link to the new features coming from Copilot Lab, so you can don't look at that too, but it's rolling out in the next few months. But yeah, good way to get started. You can filter it by app, things like that here as well. But especially when you're starting to book, you can build very like long, like quite complex prompts as well. So having a place to store those can be really helpful. While I'm in here, a couple of other things I wanted to show. If you work for a Microsoft partner or you have like customers, the go-to-market resources for Copilot is a good one to be aware of. This is where you can find things like FAQs, pitch decks, readiness guides, heaps of really good resources here, demos, all of that. So if you are, supporting customers in terms of adopting Copilot, highly recommend this website. There's heaps and heaps of resources here, and heaps get added all the time. And the adoption page. So, I talked about the success kit and the launch day kit, the scenario library, they're all on here, but along with a bunch of other resources too. So they've got on here as well, there's a prompt ingredient. So this is like flyers you can give to your customers or people internally to give them guidance around creating prompts, and a bunch of other resources here too. Also for all the other Microsoft 365 apps and services. So it's a good one to be aware of. And then the roadmap. There is a public roadmap for Copilot. So if you go to the M365 roadmap, this is all on the sides, the links by the way. You can filter this by Copilot for M365, and it tells you all of the features that are coming to Copilot and when the rollout dates are expected to be as well. So good place to check if Copilot doesn't do something now and you want it to be able to do that, go have a look at the roadmap, see when that's planning to roll out, and you can track it kind of from here as well. There's heaps of stuff that's coming, really exciting.
There's a mention there about trying an app. So you've got the prompts that you store online. You can't retrieve those prompts other than control paste from the prompts library. You don't get when you're in Word or something like that, you can't see prompts that you've made for Word yet.
No, you've got those like those book icons in the apps in the prompt window, which gives you some examples, but not your library. That's either like
what I'm saying is when you're in Word, you can't see the prompts that you've already made for yourself from that library yet. I think it might be.
No. Yeah. There. And then I'll just go back to this. Another good thing I found really helpful is there's a couple of learn passes. I'm going to switch back. There's just a couple other resources I found really helpful too. There's a lot of learning paths on Microsoft Learn. The use cases one is cool. It's got different scenarios like a sales use case, HR, executive, IT, all of that. It actually gives you like documents you can download and prompts. So if you want to either it's good for creating demos, you can also just use it to kind of walk through a process. So that's a good learning way, particularly for people just getting started. And I've used it as well for giving to people when they want to demo it but don't have any kind of content to demo on. It's good for that. And then the craft effective prompts learn path is good too. It walks you through basically a good, better, best type prompting workflow, so you can see how you can take kind of a standard or simple prompt that people normally start with, and then how you can add more information to it to then build it out, and so it's more effective with Copilot. So and then there's also put the link to the latest updates. So every month the new features that come to Copilot get published on that website on the latest updates one, and then the tech community blog as well has updates and things there. So these are just my helpful links.
Share the slides so people can follow the links.
These are all links.
Within the tenant space, what is the default sort of data that Copilot has access to? For example, can I ask it how many people in the company, for example? What does it have access to AD? Can I ask it
you can ask it anything that you have access to.
Right.
So if I ask it what is the CEO's salary, it would say I can't give you that information.
Yeah.
Because you don't have access to that.
Right.
Unless you are the CEO. And that you have access to, I can give you back that data.
Or if your SharePoint is misconfigured and users can see.
SharePoint's not.
Salary payroll is outright blocked. Questions around personally identifiable information is also blocked. So you can't ask things like, you couldn't say say someone said something about they were off for a medical reason. You couldn't say why is this person on medical leave, and get that.
Questions. Who's my manager?
It knows that.
It knows that kind of information. Not like
That's Active Directory because that's data you have access to normally.
that minutes.
You can say it, you can ask it.
So when you said you adopted the Copilot and you were asked not to ask certain questions, was it because it's a permission issue, or is there an auditing process for ops? That people are trying to game the system, or are there any even pen testing tools that can be used to find out what are people trying to do to get access to things that they shouldn't be getting access to? Are there?
I mean, for us, it was like we did the data security piece, which and thought it was all good, but just in case something had been missed, you know, they wanted us to not be. They didn't want us asking like payroll questions and things like that. In terms of there are monitoring, so you can do audit checks. The audit log applies to Copilot interactions. So you can audit people and the interactions of Copilot. The content search allows you to see the text of the prompt that someone's using for Copilot. So if you want to actually see what they've asked and what the response is, you can use content search for that, because interactions with Copilot are stored in the user's mailbox. So if that's a location, it's going to be in the content search. And then communication compliance is another thing you could do if you want to kind of detect if people are using Copilot for something against a company policy. It's another way. And then if you want to retain it, retention logs, retention policies also apply to Copilot interactions. So if you want to be able to go back, you know, and retain interactions, you can do that too, as long as you've got the Teams chats as a like part, you know, it's included in your retention policy. That also covers Copilot interactions. So that's kind of some of the monitoring stuff you could use.
Are you saying that you can take your company's policies and then feed that into Microsoft Copilot as rules that people have to, you know, just so that it can tell you, look, I can't give you that answer because it's against your policy.
No, they'll be configured inside my
Configured policy.
Right, okay.
Yeah, like when in the communication one, compliance, that's a policy to configure, say what is. Yeah,
Right, so-
yeah.
The Copilot will respect any information or, I guess, I speak English. I will respect any information management or compliance policies that you've got configured in any of the applications that it has access to. So if you, for instance, have a data loss prevention policy or a confidential labeling on a document, it will respect that and not show it. That's right. And you can't see that normally if you went there, so I'm not going to show you now.
I mean, it's more like typically configuration could be, you know, XML or JSON or something like that. But with Copilot, you can almost use, you know, unstructured data, you know, just your whole Confluence, you know, company policies is, and then you can learn from that what it helps.
If we could trying to say, so if you were building something from scratch using an LLM, you could add a system prompt and system messaging that basically tells LLM how to react and what not to do.
Yeah.
You don't have that option in Copilot for 365,
Right.
because it's governed by your orgs policies that are built into the applications.
Okay.
If you decided now you wanted to extend using Azure AI, you could then go crazy and build all that in yourself
Right.
and consume that as a extension. As a default, it's basically leveraging everything that's inside of the graph and your tenant and everything that you set up right now.
Question. I was talking to a customer earlier today on Copilot, and he has a customer service team where, you know, some clear low-hanging fruit for the tool. His question was if there's any training providers offering in like a classroom setting. I mentioned those resources, those types of resources, and his concern was quite blatant that if it required them to take initiative to go find information, they would not. So put them in a classroom, say, this is how you do this skill like prompt. This is how it works. These are some use cases. Is there anyone providing that kind of service yet?
There's somebody in front with their hand up in there.
Yeah.
I think a few of us in the room as well that are from the ISV space, we all have a level of training that we provide through different mechanisms, some adoption training, some readiness. So I think most of the people in the room that are part of the ecosystem will have some sort of training in play available. And then obviously the independent providers as well.
You mentioned that your senior leadership, the adoptions are halted there. Was that because they didn't have any good use cases to so therefore they didn't see much value in it, or did you find that they actually had blockers that when you talked to them about it, they actually Some things like
Yeah, I was rolled out past senior leadership, but with other cases, it's where it has stopped there. It's more like, for example, they've gone into Copilot in Word, opened up the chat, said write a paragraph. Copilot in the Word chat can't write it in the document. You have to use, so it's more like, because they don't have time to maybe like try or learn or have patience, because you do have to like give yourself a bit of time and have patience so you learn and understand how to use it. Then they've kind of gone, oh, this is like not working. I imagined, and then give up. Because if you don't have time, yeah. So that's kind of what I've seen happen a bit. But it can often be quite an easy like fix, but you just have to kind of try different things and yeah.
It's definitely one of the biggest challenges, right? It's like everyone's got 20 odd
Yeah.
years of muscle memory with the way that you do your work, especially for time poor people like executives who are really busy.
Yeah.
They don't have the time to think about what they want to do. They have to get on with it, do it.
And they need to see success immediately. They don't want something that stresses them out. They want,
Yeah, I mean,
work.
they've got to that point in their career by being really good at what they do.
Yeah.
So they've got all of these skills behind them that have got them to that point. But now they have to like learn something different to get them to be good with the AI stuff.
And in a way,
Quite a challenge.
And in a way, when Copilot gets introduced to them, it's kind of like an elevator pitch. You know, you got 30 seconds of their time before they say, nah, whatever.
I mean, the potential of it is amazing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of organizational change and personal change that you have to invest to actually get the return on investment out of it. So it's not a magic bullet. That
you take a white glove executive coaching approach, and often they have executive assistants who are actually working with them to start with, to enable them to then drip feed and pass on those little skills. Hey, try this. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'll put that into my way of working.
I think honestly, once you can start talking to it properly, like once GPT-4o is behind the scenes, then you'll probably get a lot more executive uptake, because it's the natural inclination around the delegation stuff that Daryl was talking about. A lot of execs are really good at that delegation stuff. That's how they got to that point in their career. You know, so they can just, if they can verbally just talk to the copilots and have the interaction banter and say, no, that's not what I want it like this, whatever. I think then you'll start seeing a lot more uptake. Show an executive a box that they have to type into, it's too awkward.
There's also a bit of a curve, because the first LLM that we ever all had access to was ChatGPT, right? It's amazing. I just go with this one thing. Copilots are specific for the application they're built into. So the Copilot for Word is there specifically to generate text and content in the context of the document or the information you reference. It's not there to go and create a super recipe. Or add a picture or add a table. It could. Yeah. So there's sometimes that. Well, I work in ChatGPT, but it doesn't work in Copilot. Copilot's terrible. Copilot's amazing. It's not ChatGPT. It's not the same thing. So you've got to sort of get that education, and also some of the things. I think Nick mentioned earlier. It was and Daryl mentioned. Currently we search and we get 10 links, and then we click on it, and then we get the answer, and we go, that's right. Generative AI doesn't work that way. It reasons over a whole bunch of data and goes, based on what I've learned and been taught and the information I have, this is the answer I'm presenting to you. But that's not the right answer. That actually probably is close to, but it wasn't perfect. They go, oh, but it sucks. No, it doesn't.
So I think Microsoft bought OpenAI. Did Microsoft bought OpenAI? Is that right?
Microsoft are part of the
Heavily invested in it. So is Copilot kind of like GPT-4, or is it like in terms of like, you know, applications and version histories and branching? Is it kind of like a
Copilot's a combination of models. The last part that generates most of your content, depending on the application you use, mostly GPT-4, I think, if I remember right.
4 Turbo.
Yeah.
Copilot is the car. The GPT-4 is the engine.
right?
A lot that happens around.
There's a lot of other moving parts that go into Copilot, all the data sources, the extensions, the grounding, the graph, that all feeds together. And then you plug that into the engine and you get answers out of it. And I think that's the big difference, is that you've got a whole car with Copilot.
Yeah, some of the Copilots that will run multiple models. If you're using PowerPoint, it uses GPT-3, 4.5 Turbo, and Bali 3. If you're in GitHub, it's using something else. If you do some of the other processing, it passes off to non-OpenAI models to do some work and then passes it back into GPT 4.5 to provide the answer. So
There's literally work underway now though to replace GPT-4T with GPT-4o. Yeah, 100%. And then that allows the multimodal interaction. So with voice and video and audio. So
So like each model will do for different things. Like these go for image generation, and then different models have use for DALL-E to make work.
And speaking of that, does Copilot can Copilot create images?
Yeah, DALL-E does it, but you can use Copilot for Microsoft.com and say, create an image, it'll use DALL-E to do the work. In PowerPoint, it'll use DALL-E to do the work as well.
And you go into Edge, on the Edge extension that you were showing, there's a image design, Microsoft Designer, image creator, and that will.
That's amazing.
It's a fun way. Like I use that to teach prompting, like in a fun way. We're doing like events and things because it's a cool way to visually see like how your prompting impacts like.
The design is actually amazing, the amount of things you can do there. That's generative fill, background replacement, image creation, icon
You
creation.
can see how this is totally going to replace Microsoft Word clip art that we all grew up with.
I hope so. Well, there's also Copilot for Paint.
Yeah.
Right. No, I haven't.
Saw the demo of it.
Yeah, Copilot for Paint. Paint's never going away.
It reminds me of a couple of things. One is Bill Gates wrote a book, Business at the Speed of Thought, and this is sort of kind of an implementation of that almost. The second of all, this reminds me of Steve and Dharma with his like developers. There's so much push with Copilot as well. It feels very fever pitch. Like,
There's a lot of investment in the ecosystem from Microsoft as well. We were very fortunate to spend some time with a member of the Microsoft exec team, a lady called Dee Templeton. She sits on the OpenAI board and reports directly into Satya and Kevin Scott. And she says, ironically, in the early days when GPT 3.5 came out, they couldn't find anybody internally wanted to use it. And even Bill Gates said, I'm not too convinced about this stuff. When I can do certain things, I'll be clear. And that was in the space of 2 years has gone from, well, what do we do with it to how can we live without it? And it's also the relationship with Microsoft OpenAI. It's a partner relationship. They obviously have other partners as well, but there's parity to the team. So when GPT 4.0 lands in OpenAI, it says it's available in Azure at the same time. So there's like direct parity because that's the level of partnership to have.
Do you see how he ran away from the mic?
Just back to the training. So
Yes.
I'm an executive assistant normally. I'm job hunting, if anyone knows. Is the training free if you're not wanting to go with external?
Yeah, look, the adoption.microsoft.com site is freely available to anyone, and there's a category there for Copilot that has a lot of the resources we showed you. It's a good starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So much physical training, like going in for an hour's training or something.
No,
like that.
yeah.
To be brutally honest, if a little bit of time on YouTube, every single PM Microsoft Pro has got some sort of video, including myself and Daryl, on how to do this in Word, how to do this in PowerPoint. You'll find a lot of free resources, great advice. The local MVP network, Daryl Stubbard, he's got Lisa Crosby on the dynamic side as well. It's got quite a bit on it. All local folks as well, AUNZ. A lot of free resources on how to use the Copilots in their specific tooling.
Great stuff on LinkedIn as well, because that work trends index where people are looking for jobs, employers are now asking, do you have AI skills? And define what AI skills are. Yeah.
speaking of AI, you talked about Azure AI. What's the difference between Azure AI and Copilot?
Copilot's built on top of Azure AI. So you take all the AI capabilities are in Azure. One of the options is for you to use OpenAI's model.
Right.
Or you can use just Azure AI, which is you can use any of the AI models that's available in Azure. Llama 3, Mistral.
There's over 1,000, I think.
Like Copilot's orchestrate, it's a first party packaged offering from Microsoft.
Yeah.
It says you buy a license, turn it on and use it.
Yeah.
Azure AI is a bunch of building blocks.
Right.
So if you want to build your own solution that embedded with AI, you
Right.
can do that through.
Kind of like AWS's offerings.
What's right?
Sounds kind of like AWS's offerings.
Yeah, similar, you know. So there's like AWS is essentially just a marketplace for AI stuff.
Yeah.
Microsoft's more heavily invested through our partnership with OpenAI to actually build complete solutions.
The Azure AI Playground is amazing. Even if you've never coded in your life, you can go straight in there and start building chat applications. You can start building companions. You can test using the different models, and it's cheap as chips.
A lot of stuff that was announced to build edge large language models that we can actually deploy to devices. So when we're running, which is really cool.
You get I think $200 worth of credits on Azure if you sign up for the first time. It doesn't take a lot of processing to just play with it. You throw a bit of AI search on top of this, like $80 for the month, and you can start creating indexing with your own data, and you'll see magic. And it basically exposes the endpoint, so you can then go into any application you have and just test the endpoint. They even give you sample Python code that you can just cut and paste into your application to start off with. So it's really, really great place to start. Sorry?
You're able to bring up on screen.
Not tonight because we're.
You had to go out for a walk.
Neil owns the AI user group.
Just go portal.azure.co.
Yeah.
.com. Yep. If you don't have a subscription, you can sign up for a trial there.
Yeah.
And you'll just do it in the services, just do OpenAI services, and it'll bring up a list of and help you start building your first project in there.
When Daniel comes back, he runs the AI user group for Aotearoa, and they meet once every month in this building at lunchtime, and there's free pizza as well.
So if you want to get on a pizza run, work out all the things to get pizza from. Look, it's really good to hear the hunger about hunger to learn more about Copilot, and that's what these user groups are all about. So tonight was all about adoption. Glad that it encouraged all sorts of other questions as well. Just to sort of summarize where we're at with the adoption side of it, I would say, look, Copilot is a different beast. It isn't as easy as you think. So while the stats might say 75% of people are using AI in some form, it's probably there's probably a different story to understand behind the scenes there. So don't underestimate that there will need to be a different kind of effort to help people to pick this up. Not a bad thing, just a different angle. Really, the key thing is to align it with people's real needs. That's how you approach adoption. Don't throw 50 different commands out to people and say choose these. But as you've heard, some people will need a closer white glove kind of guidance. You sit down with them, you talk about what it is that they need, and then maybe you suggest some things. And we've seen some good examples from the scenarios library, the Copilot labs. There's lots of different inspiration that you can use to help people. It's very an individual journey, right? It is still something that everyone, if they're going to take advantage of it, they've got to make it their own. So still important that way. I won't talk through the other bullet points. I think we understand that adoption of Copilot is a journey, and I think we're all still figuring it out. Again, why we have the user group, because we might have the same session again in 12 months' time, and there'll be some different advice. Hopefully similar, but yeah, different. But thank you all for attending. Thank you for those who attended online and stuck in there and had some good questions as well. Next month, we haven't got a topic yet, I think. We do?
We have AppPoint coming through around readiness, so they're going to be doing a bit of a session on their product they have. So next month will basically be a readiness session. Any sort of show of hands, which Copilot for M365 would you like us to spend some time demoing? Anyone want to throw out a few suggestions? Or not?
Azure AI Studio.
We can do
Excel. Do Excel.
No,
Excel.
We'll do Teams. We'll do Teams. Yeah.
I can use our fake meeting.
We'll do Teams.
Teams recap, Teams premium.
Yeah, we'll do Teams.
Whether Microsoft Stream does automatic summary of transcriptions.
Yeah.
With Copilot on top of it.
Yeah. We've got a QC in here to list the whole thing.
There was a question that I was going to quickly clarify. Some of the question about what is the difference between the extensions and et cetera. Forget about the tech part. One of the big differences is control. So if any single person in your organization with the M365 Copilot for M365 license can go and build a Copilot Studio Copilot. Okay, with the extensions in the admin center, only the admin can enable that and publish it is as a published Copilot extension. So there's a bit of a control thing there as well. You can put some governance on the Copilot Studio stuff, but it's definitely one of the big things with extensions is make it org wide and have a lot of control over it. Where with Copilot Studio, the whole idea is that you can just quickly spin up effectively a little mini GPT, then start using it. So that's one of the big differences is the admin side.
Right. So we've got a topic for next week, next month, next week. Probably feels that close. But yeah, if you do have other things you want to know about in the M365 Copilot space, and we are going to try and branch out and get a bit more around the other Copilot experiences, then do let us know. Yeah. And we've been really happy with how the user groups have been going too, with all the questions, the interaction. If you've got any ideas too for how to make it a bit more interactive, maybe we get in a couple more tables and we have some discussion groups on stuff. We can do that too.
If you want us to talk, then volunteer to talk.
Yeah, share your stories for sure. As you saw, like with Lauren's story, we had the Fonterra story last time. I think we've all got stories that help. Great.
Just one more thing.
Sure.
An area of interest for me is around the governance, setting up the governance before you roll out the Copilot. And we've got a lot of clients that are assessing going into the Copilot space when they understand that you can't just switch it on, that we've got to take them through that process of governance. It'd be interesting to do a talk in that space.
Next month.
Yeah, so that's part of the readiness picture. Yeah.
Lauren looks excited.
That's her space too. Yeah.
The admin guys are going to be doing 20 minutes. They're not here to take over the evening, but we want to give them the spot because they're a great product and they're sponsoring us as well. So we'll get Lauren.
Yep.
So bring Lauren in to talk about governance.
Great.
Great topic.
Thanks all.